You're not welcome here anymore. The harsh Korean words cut through the salty air as Adunni stood frozen on the weathered dock, her camera hanging uselessly around her neck. The elderly fisherman who had been shouting pointed directly at her, his weathered face twisted with anger she couldn't understand. "I'm sorry, I don't speak," she began in English, but her words were lost in the wind. Just hours ago, she thought she was headed to Busan for her photography project. Instead, she found herself stranded on a remote island where nobody spoke English, her phone had no signal, and the last ferry back to mainland Korea had already departed. The mistake that would change everything had already been made. But what she didn't know was that the man watching silently from beside the fishing nets, the one with gentle eyes and weathered hands, would soon become the reason she'd never want to leave this place. Love has a way of finding you in the most unexpected places, even when you're completely, utterly lost. Before we dive into Adunni's incredible journey of love, loss, and finding herself on the other side of the world, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. And I'm so curious, drop a comment below and tell me where in the world you're watching from. Are you team spontaneous adventure or team careful planning? Let's see those flags in the comments. Now, let's get back to our story. 3 days earlier, Adunni Okafor had been sitting in her cramped Lagos apartment, surrounded by photography equipment and rejection letters from travel magazines. At 26, she had a degree in photojournalism that her father constantly reminded her was a waste of good money, and a dream of documenting cross-cultural connections that seemed increasingly impossible to achieve. Another adventure that will lead nowhere, her mother had said when Adunni announced her solo trip to South Korea. When will you stop chasing fantasies and find a proper husband? But Adunni had saved every naira for 2 years. This wasn't just a trip, it was her chance to prove that her photography could bridge worlds, capture stories that mattered. She had planned everything meticulously: fly to Seoul, take the KTX to Busan, document the fishing communities, return home with a portfolio that would finally get her noticed. Life, however, had other plans. The confusion started at Seoul Station. Despite her careful preparation, the Korean transportation system proved more complex than anticipated. Between the language barrier and her growing anxiety, she boarded what she thought was the correct ferry to Busan. Only when the crew started speaking in rapid Korean did she realize her mistake. "Excuse me," she approached a crew member, showing her phone with the translation app. "Busan?" The man shook his head, pointing to the horizon. "Jeju-do." Her heart sank. Jeju Island was in the complete opposite direction, and worse, they were heading to a small fishing village on the island's remote coast, a place that didn't even appear on most tourist maps. As the ferry approached the tiny harbor, Adunni's panic grew. The dock was smaller than her childhood church back in Lagos, with maybe a dozen weathered buildings scattered along the coastline. Fishing boats bobbed in the gentle waves, their blue paint peeling under the harsh sun. "This can't be right," she whispered to herself. The ferry captain, an older man with kind eyes, seemed to understand her distress. Through broken English and gestures, he explained that the next ferry back wouldn't come for 3 days. 3 days in a place where her phone showed no bars, her carefully planned schedule was destroyed, and her limited Korean phrases felt utterly useless. That's when she first saw him. Minjae was repairing fishing nets near the dock, his movements methodical and peaceful. Unlike the others who stared at the unexpected foreign visitor with curiosity or suspicion, he simply glanced up once, offered a small nod, and returned to his work. Something about his quiet presence in the midst of her growing panic felt like an anchor. "Excuse me," she called out, desperate enough to try anyone. "Do you speak English?" He looked up again, studying her face with those calm, dark eyes. "Little bit," he said, his voice deep and careful. "You lost?" The simple question nearly brought tears to her eyes. "Very lost." What followed were the strangest and most beautiful 3 days of Adunni's life. Minjae, whose name meant older brother in Korean, was 31 and had never left the island. His family had been fishermen for 4 generations, and he spoke of the sea the way Adunni spoke of photography, with reverence and deep understanding. His English was limited but precise, learned from old textbooks and occasional tourists who visited during summer months. "You stay," he had said simply when she explained her situation. "My grandmother house. She like visitors." Grandmother Kim was a tiny woman with steel-gray hair and the sharpest eyes Adunni had ever seen. She spoke no English but somehow communicated more with hand gestures and warm smiles than most people did with words. Within hours, Adunni found herself sitting on the floor of the traditional Korean house, learning to eat kimchi without tears streaming down her face while Grandmother Kim laughed at her attempts. "She say you eat like baby bird," Minjae translated, grinning. "But she like you. How can she tell?" Adunni asked, still recovering from the spicy fermented cabbage. "She make kimchi extra mild for you. She never do that." Days blended into each other like watercolors. Adunni would wake before dawn to watch Minjae prepare his boat, fascinated by the ritual precision of his movements. He taught her Korean words for basic things, for water, for rice, for thank you, while she taught him Yoruba phrases that made him laugh. "Bawo and I," she would say, and he would respond with a careful "Mo wadup," thanking her in her own language with an accent that was endearingly wrong but perfectly sincere. She began documenting their daily life through her camera lens, not the exotic, othering photography she had planned, but intimate moments of genuine connection. Minjae teaching her to mend nets. Grandmother Kim showing her how to prepare traditional banchan. The village children who initially hid behind their mothers now posing dramatically for her camera. "Why you take pictures?" Minjae asked one evening as they sat on the dock, watching the sunset paint the water gold. "To show people that we're not so different," she said. "In Nigeria, we have fishing villages too. People who work with their hands, who understand the sea." He was quiet for a long moment. "You think we same?" "I think hearts are the same everywhere." That night, something shifted between them. When he looked at her, it wasn't just with curiosity anymore. When she photographed him, it wasn't just for her project. They were seeing each other, really seeing, for the first time. "Adunni," he said her name carefully, the way he did everything. "Tomorrow is last day?" "The ferry comes tomorrow, yes." "You want to stay?" The question hung between them like morning mist over the water. Want was such a small word for what she felt, this inexplicable sense that she had found something she hadn't even known she was looking for. "I want to stay," she whispered. "But I can't." "Why?" How could she explain the weight of expectations, the photography career that existed more in dreams than reality, the family who already thought she was wasting her life chasing impossible dreams? "Because this isn't real life," she said, hating herself for the words even as she spoke them. "This is just a beautiful mistake." His face closed off then, the openness she had grown to cherish disappearing behind polite distance. "Maybe you're right," he said quietly. "Maybe mistake." But that night, as she lay on the traditional mat in Grandmother Kim's house, listening to the waves against the shore, Adunni knew she was making the biggest mistake of her life by leaving. The ferry arrived at dawn, and with it came a phone call that changed everything. As soon as Adunni's phone picked up signal, it exploded with messages. 23 missed calls from her father. 15 texts from her mother. Her Instagram account, which she had barely updated, was flooded with comments from family and friends who had seen her posts from the island. "Adunni." Her father's voice crackled through the poor connection. "What is this nonsense I see on Instagram? You are in some village with local people?" "Papa, I can explain." "Explain what?" "That you are embarrassing our family name. That people are asking me why my daughter is living like a beggar in some foreign country." The words hit her like cold water. Back home, her 3 days of peace and discovery were being interpreted as something shameful, something to hide. "It's not like that," she tried to protest, but her father was just getting started. Your mother is sick with worry. Your aunties are asking questions. And what is this man I see in the pictures? Adunni's heart stopped. In the background of several photos she had posted, Minjae appeared, sometimes teaching her about fishing, sometimes laughing at her attempts to speak Korean. To her, they were beautiful moments of cultural exchange. To her family, apparently, they were evidence of scandal. Papa, he's just a friend who... Friend? A grown man and a grown woman cannot be just friends in a foreign country. You will come home immediately. Today. But the ferry doesn't. I don't care about ferry. You will find a way. This embarrassment ends now. The line went dead, leaving Adunni standing on the dock with her packed bags and a heart full of lead. Minjae approached quietly, reading her expression with the same intuition he used to predict weather patterns. Bad news? He asked. I have to go. The words felt like swallowing glass. My family, they're angry. Because of me? She wanted to lie, to protect him from the ugly reality of her family's prejudices, but he deserved honesty. Because of us. Because they don't understand. Something flickered across his face, hurt, understanding, resignation. Maybe they right. Don't say that. You from different world, Adunni. Big city, educated family. I just fisherman on small island. That's not what matters. It mattered to your family. If you're feeling for Adunni right now, knowing the impossible choice she's facing between family expectations and true love, make sure you're subscribed because stories like this, especially those featuring strong women of color navigating cross-cultural love, are exactly what we need more of in this world. Hit that like button if you believe love should transcend boundaries. What Adunni didn't expect was for her father to actually follow through on his threat to come get her. 2 days after she had reluctantly taken the ferry back to Seoul, Dr. James Okafor arrived at Incheon Airport with the fury of a man whose reputation had been questioned in the local Nigerian community. He was a respected surgeon, a deacon in their church, and a man who had worked too hard to build his family's status to watch his daughter destroy it with what he called childish romanticism. You think this is love? He asked as they sat in the airport hotel, his voice cold with disappointment. This is infatuation. You are confused because you are lonely. Papa, you don't understand. I understand that you have forgotten who you are. You are an Okafor. We do not run around the world chasing fishermen. The word fisherman dripped with disdain, and Adunni felt something break inside her chest. His name is Minjae, and he's a good man. Good man for someone, maybe. Not for you. You have education, opportunities. You could marry the son of the Adebayos, or that young engineer from church. Men with futures. I don't want to marry someone for their career prospects. Then what do you want? Her father leaned forward, his eyes blazing. To throw away everything we sacrificed for you? To live in some village where nobody knows your name or your potential? Adunni thought of the sunrise over the water, of grandmother Kim's gentle hands teaching her to fold dumplings, of Minji's quiet strength and the way he made her feel like the best version of herself. I want to be happy, she whispered. Happiness is temporary, her father said flatly. Respect lasts forever. That night, alone in the sterile hotel room, Adunni stared at her phone. She had Minji's number now. He had gotten a smartphone just to stay in contact with her. But what would she say? That her father was right? That their worlds were too different? That 3 days of perfect connection couldn't overcome a lifetime of expectations? In the end, she said nothing at all. 3 months passed in a blur of half-hearted job applications and family dinners where everyone pretended everything was normal. Adunni went through the motions of being the dutiful daughter, attending church, socializing with the appropriate young men her mother invited to dinner, even going on a few dates that left her feeling empty and hollow. But every night, she looked through the photos from those 3 days in Korea, and every night, she felt a piece of her soul withering away. The breakthrough came during a conversation with her youngest sister, Kemi, who was visiting from university. "You look terrible," Kemi said bluntly over breakfast. "Like someone dimmed your light." "I'm fine." "No, you're not. You're miserable, and it's making everyone else miserable too." Kemi studied her with the directness only a sibling could manage. "This is about that Korean guy, isn't it?" Adunni nearly dropped her coffee cup. "How do you? Your Instagram posts from that trip were the happiest I've ever seen you. Then you came back and became this zombie version of yourself." Kemi leaned forward. "Do you love him?" The question was so simple and so impossible. "It doesn't matter." "Of course it matters." "Why do you think it doesn't matter?" "Because Papa is right. We're from different worlds. It would never work." "Says who?" Kemi's voice rose with the passion of someone who hadn't yet learned to compromise her dreams. "Mama and Papa married for practical reasons, and look how that turned out. They're not unhappy, but they're not alive the way you were in those pictures." That night, Adunni finally opened the messaging app on her phone. Minjae's last message was from 2 weeks ago, a simple photo of the sunset over the water with the words, "Thinking of you." Her fingers trembled as she typed, "I'm sorry I disappeared. I've been a coward." His response came immediately, as if he had been waiting, "Are you okay?" "No. I miss you. I miss everything about those 3 days. I miss you too. Every day. I want to come back." There was a long pause, then, "Your family?" "I'll figure it out." "You sure?" Adunni looked around her childhood bedroom, at the awards and certificates that represented the life her parents had planned for her, at the career prospects that felt as foreign as a language she'd never learned. "I'm sure. I choose us." Flying back to Korea felt like swimming upstream against everything she had been taught about duty, family, and appropriate choices. Her father had stopped speaking to her entirely. Her mother alternated between tearful phone calls and icy silence. But for the first time in months, Adunni felt like she could breathe. The ferry ride to the island was different this time, no panic, no confusion, just anticipation that made her hands shake. She had learned enough Korean in the months apart to have basic conversations, had researched ways to make a living on the island, had even started planning a photography project documenting the intersection of African and Korean cultures. But more than anything, she just wanted to see Minjae's face when she told him she had chosen love over fear. He was on the dock when the ferry arrived, as if he had been waiting there for 3 months. Their eyes met across the water, and the smile that spread across his face was like watching the sun rise. "You came back," he said when she stepped onto the wooden planks. "I came home," she corrected. This time, when he kissed her, she didn't think about what anyone else would say. She didn't calculate the cultural differences or worry about the practical challenges ahead. She just kissed him back and felt complete for the first time in her adult life. 6 months later, Adunni's photography exhibition opened in Seoul, a collection called Islands of Connection that featured intimate portraits of cross-cultural relationships throughout Asia. The centerpiece was a series from the fishing village that had become her home, including a stunning portrait of an elderly Korean woman teaching a young Nigerian woman to prepare traditional kimchi. Her parents didn't attend the opening, but Kemi flew in from Lagos and cried when she saw the photos. "This is what happiness looks like," she whispered, standing in front of a candid shot of Adunni and Minjae working side by side to repair fishing nets, both of them laughing at something off camera. And that's how love won over fear, how choosing authenticity over approval changed everything. If stories like Adunni's inspire you, stories of courage, cross-cultural love, and the power of following your heart, make sure you're subscribed to Mystic Tale by Luna. We're building a community of people who believe love transcends borders, and I'd love to have you as part of our family. What would you have done in Adunni's position? Would you have chosen family approval or true love? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to tell me where you're watching from. Until next time, keep believing in the magic of unexpected connections. Red heart. The camera fades out on the image of two wedding rings, one traditional Korean silver, one decorated with Nigerian coral beads, resting side by side on weathered fishing nets, with the endless ocean stretching toward the horizon.